Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Seams and Downs. We are joined here today on this lovely Saturday here at Cameron Brown Park. We've got the softball fields behind us. Wonderful day. The sun's just come out. We've got a little bit of clouds. It's not too warm yet on this summer day. However, we have nothing but air and opportunity with Coach Briana Yeager right here with us. She has graced us with her presence, and we're going to talk about her story, and we're going to talk about what her journey, and of course some other things when it comes to coaching with the Germantown Baseball League. So Coach Briana is the head coach for the Lady Rays, director, correct me if I'm wrong, director, right? So the director of the Germantown Parks and Rec, or the Baseball League, and
all of the softball leagues, so
all the softball programs. So we're in for a special treat today. So I'm your host, Doc Metter. And we are going to we'll go ahead and jump right on into this since the wind's blowing. And so, Coach, look, much appreciation for you joining us today. I know it's some time for us to get together, but we are here between vacations and things of that nature. We hope you're well rested, and we hope you have a lot to say for our hosts or our community today. And just welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to meet all of you. And I'm glad we get to talk for this next little bit.
Outstanding. So, Coach, let's talk for a moment. We've got a little history because my daughter's played on your team. And so I know for us it's been a journey, but let's tell the community how did you get? Are you a native of this of Tennessee, Germantown? Tell us how you got here.
I'm not, not even a little. So I'm actually from Buffalo, Go Bills. And my dad's a Marine, so we moved around a lot. So I've actually lived in a lot of places. And moved here. I'm a college professor by professional background.
Wow.
I'm the chair of a department, one of our universities here in town, and moved here for a really good job opportunity for me, and brought my family after boys and husband, feeling a love, and always, kind of being a part of the sports world has been a part of my life my entire life. I started playing softball when I was 3. That first ball experience.
Oh, wow.
Fell in love then. My mom put me driving off the field. And then actually started coaching when I was 13. So the first,
Oh, wow.
yeah, the first team I coached, I was 13 years old. It was a 13 to 18 soccer league in the older division, as many older divisions do. It was the early 90s. They're like, the kids will coach themselves.
Wow.
So I was the elected coach, and kind of just fell in love with it, and have always done it since in some capacity. Even when I was, in college and doing my own thing, I always found ways to, be part of a coaching scenario. I worked for the athletic department at my university for a short period of time, and this is kind of who I am. And it's what I do professionally.
13, a natural leader. I mean, got it early on. That's awesome. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's powerful. Powerful. So 13. So you've obviously had a lot of mentors, right? So tell us. When it comes to the softball world, who's big, small, in between? Who's been your guide, your mentor? Who have you gone to for coaching styles and maybe even trying to mimic what they do?
Yeah, so I've been very fortunate. I've had a lot of really good mentors over the years, and they're not big name people that folks would know. One was a high school teacher of mine, Coach Briana, and he was little tiny guy, turned bright red all the time when he'd get on us about different things, but he first and foremost he knew without a doubt that he loved us.
Yeah.
He was going to be in our corner. And that, he was never going to take, you weren't gonna, you were definitely gonna get corrected, but his really verbosity that was reserved for
Mm,
umpires and others. And
sure.
he was out in the front going to battle for us.
Wow.
And then Coach Ducky,
I
you
got you. No, this is
know,
fun.
he just little old Italian guy, came down, volunteer coach for our high school team, and he's taught me how to pitch. He like really pitched well. He's the one that um, really showed me the analytical side of the game,
Mm,
and the fact that it's, sometimes you have to be willing to do what's right, not what's easy when it comes to managing something. And so, sometimes you got to pull someone out
sure.
because they're just done. And it doesn't matter. Their heart's not done, but their body is. Or their mind's done, even if, they've got 10 more reps. What if the damage those 10 more reps will do isn't worth the thing. So it was kind of learning those things
Yeah.
early, that I think are important. And then both my parents play, and have, my dad was he was a Marine, but he also was a volunteer firefighter, and they had a lead. And so all us kids, we were the feral siblings of our parent, but they're the feral children,
Right.
and we were out there behind the field at the fire hall, and it was a real community. Fire halls competed against each
Oh,
other.
wow.
They
Yeah.
played. But with kids, we were going we're like, you're gonna keep score. We learned to do it from them. You're gonna help coach a base. We were progressive for
Sure.
the late 80s and early 90s. Here's your helmet, so that
Yeah. Yeah.
and really, like, it was a community building event. So we as kids watched our parents play and saw how much love they had for the game, and we wanted to do it too. So we have our own little, like sandlot style
Wow.
type of thing
Yeah.
going on. The big kids took care of the little kids, and so I think learning from that, and my mom's team was a lot of, it was a women's team, and a lot of those women were coaches in, for high school programs or college programs, and I really learned a lot from them. And then as I got older, daughters became the players, and so I played with some of those coaches. And when we moved here, obviously I couldn't fly back to New York every week and play. But when we moved here, we won that year, both the league and the playoffs. And the oldest lady on the team was 64.
Wow.
And she wasn't as fast as
Sure.
she was probably when she was 25. But she still had all the skill. I mean, you hit a ball with her, you were getting out,
Fascinating.
She
Wow.
I don't think that season she ever got out at first base. She got on every time.
Wow.
And it's because there's so much about softball that can be translated to so many different areas of your life, and you can still love it and play it. It's not fast pitch when you're in your,
Right. Right.
it's not bad anymore. But it's still something, and that strategy and that camaraderie and that let's, do this for each other is part of it. So those are my mentors, and that's really who I learned
Wow.
to be a part of the game from.
Fantastic. And one of the most important things that I heard is, doing the right thing is not always the easy, I think that's where, there's just easy transition there. So as far as the mentors, and that really leads into it, and I can hear with the passion and the appreciation, I think appreciation goes hand in hand with coaching philosophy and where we're moving into, this. So let's talk about coaching philosophy real quick. So folks, bear with us. So how would you describe, in 3 words, how would you describe your coaching philosophy?
Yeah, so this one took me a long time. I'm really glad that you gave me that ahead of time because college professor, we like words. We use lots
Yeah,
of
yeah, we could. Yeah.
hyphenated words. So I said, okay, well, if you could only say three things, what would it be? And I finally settled on it. It's committed
Mm,
because I think you have to be willing to, you're often you're there before everyone else. You're leaving after everyone else. And you have to put aside your own ego for those kids, especially if you're
right.
in folks, for those kids that play for you. Then that takes a world of commitment. I have all place, right? So when I coach a softball team, none of those kids are mine,
Right.
except now all of them are mine. And I worry about them at 3 a.m.
Sure.
just like their parents do. It's a different kind of worry. Um, but I think that's the first one is being committed. I think the second one, I'm going to use the word centered,
Mm,
because everything I do and try to put in place has to be centered on those players.
right.
And it has to, it's a progression. I coach the 6U team and the 8U team, and this coming year the 14U team, and I help all the teams because that's you're the when you're the director of the league, it's like
Yeah, yeah.
I'll cover that for you. I'm the janitor today, right? Like that's the truth of how
Sure.
it is, or at least how I do it, and so you really have to make sure that whatever you're doing is centered on that group
Mm,
and on those players and letting them learn who they are. Because my playing day, I still play in adult league and I have fun with it, but like my days of playing, real fast pitch softball, that was, that was 20 years ago.
sure.
And I loved every minute of it. But right now, I don't, it's not my love that matters, it's theirs.
Mm,
And so you have to be really centered on that, that this is them and it's their journey, it's not yours. And I think that that's really important. And sometimes it's really hard to do because, when you've gone over something, it's practice and they go out in the game and they, executed. You're like, what? They're like, and you're kind of like, you represent me, like
Yep.
I don't know how to teach you,
Yep.
and that you have to have that. You're human, it's important. But you gotta feel it, breathe it, and let it out, let it go. Because in that moment, it's not about them. They know that stuff. They do. They don't. They don't need that reinforcement of what they already know. They need that. All right, well, do better next time. You got this. Let's go again. And that being that centered and grounded is today. I think that's part of it. And then I think the last thing in it is it's what makes it's what brings me joy is I think you have to be playful,
mm,
especially if you coach younger ages,
sure.
because um, we know that especially in girls sports, 70 to 80% of those girls quit by the time they're 12.
Wow.
And I think that they do that. It's scientific research supports it. We know it's there, because it becomes a job. It's not play anymore, and they don't love it. They don't really love it, and then so going for it. Like so right there, I'm 45 now. So that's 42 years. I didn't, when I was 3, hopefully I ran in the right direction. I'm sure there are a few times that I couldn't decide if I was right-handed or left-handed
Sure.
for a while. And when I was 12, it was hard because you're in that girl world of like, people like, why let them, body's changing, some kids they grew and they look like grown women and you're still this, real kid and we just want to be them,
Yep.
right? Well, I'm like, I want to play with the big girls. I want to be them. I want to be on my mom's team when I get bigger. because those ladies have fun and I want to be a part of that. And I think you have to bring that. And sometimes that looks like a whole lot of not seriousness. And it's not that. It's that if they don't love it, if those kids aren't willing to love you and know you love them, like you are there, doesn't mean you're not stern. Doesn't mean you don't give correction. But they know that if it comes down to a fight, and we're in the zone, in the trenches, in the battle, they know that you're going to be right next to them, not front next to you, because it's a balance of being playful and being the person who says, "You've got this, no matter what." You know, you might miss that ball 100 times, but you got this next one because they have to be willing to do it. So I think those are kind of the three things. So it's committed, centered.
I love it. That's so powerful. Committed, centered, and playful. Yeah, you know, and you know, folks, my daughter played for Coach Briana in AU ball, and this was her first experience, Danny's first experience with a travel ball team, so on and so forth. But an experience nonetheless, and it was a good experience. And you know, one of the powerful things about Coach Briana was that, you know, when Danny initially started playing, she talked to both parents, myself as well as my wife Christine. So I just think that was, you know, an amazing thing, and you know, just kudos for you, and kudos for any player that's going to come in and play on or just have the joy of being around you. I think that's a real cool thing. So I think you highlighted it, and as far as competitiveness and player development, you know, let's talk about that. You know, I know with travel ball. And having seen it and watched it, you know, there is a certain type of competitiveness out there.
Oh yeah.
But I think hearing in what you just had to say, you know, that if these girls don't have the love, by the time that they're, you know, 12 years old, they're gonna quit. So, you know, how do you bridge, or at what point in your coaching experience have you said, okay, we see the you know, we're surrounded by a competitive environment. We're in a competitive environment. Here's where we've got to start getting the girls to realize, okay, you know, I need you committed. I need you centered. Let's focus on the playfulness. But there is a fine line of getting them ready for the competitive nature of softball. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I think you and I learn every year.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you know, I'm from up north. I'm not from here. And so it's still a little different.
Sure.
You know, we don't have year-round weather. In Buffalo, we got snow.
Hey, down here we got the heat. It is.
You know, so like it's different, right? And so I think that the first thing is you have to do two things. One is you have to be centered on who you are as a coach, as an organization, as a team, and who you're not. Because, you know, kids develop at all sorts of different levels. And the kid who's really good at 8 might not be the kid who's really good at 12 or 14 or even at 9. You know, they grow at different levels. And, you know, I say something to parents and they don't believe me. And that's okay. They don't have to. But your brain and your body don't grow at the same time. And you can all think of that gangly teenager who's just like all limbs and bobblehead and just like, you know, looks like a little baby antelope flopping around.
Right. Yeah.
Like they don't. But their mind is growing. So here's that time where, you know, their body is growing to build their fitness, to build those reps. You know, I'm a kid who grew up with the Karate Kid movies, you know, wax on, wax on.
Me too, yeah.
And so, you know, use that time because they can do that to just, you don't have to worry about your legs are not going to do what you want them to do right now.
Yeah.
They're not, right? So, so use it to build the foundation. Like let's work on reps. Let's work on building mentally that this is how this is done. Even though right now your limbs are all over, it's not gonna look pretty. But I think that that's part of it. Knowing who you are and where you want to be. I think it's also been really open saying goodbye, because sometimes, kids progress faster than we thought they would,
Sure.
right? And the child wants. I think that's really important for parents. Their child wants to, be at that next level.
Right.
But their whole team might not be. So your kid might be ready to the rest won't. And it is delicate to, say it's time for you to grow and to maybe move to a higher level of competition with kids that are more like you. At the same time that this doesn't mean that the teammates aren't your teammates still and aren't going to maybe be joining you in a little while from now. And that, I think, that's hard as a coach. It's hard as an organization, because, you do sometimes have to, for that player's benefit,
Right.
look up your star player or say, you know what, I can help you find that organization. I think you should go to this tryout. I think you should go to this place. I think you should try for that B team or that A team if your team is a C team. And being an A team, a B team, a C team, none of that matters. It really doesn't. And especially at the 8, 9s, and 10s, what matters is, are they growing? Are they falling in love? And do they keep getting better? And sometimes for that kid, they might be absolutely capable of going with an A team, but they don't want to. They want to stay and play with their friends.
The friends. Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah, and you have, as a parent, even as a coach, you have 2 jobs. One, you have to decide is that the right thing. Right? Because sometimes it is, and sometimes we got to make someone uncomfortable to grow. That's real. Sometimes though, you got to be like, okay, they don't want this right now, and if I push for it, they won't want it ever. And that I think is hard, because it's hard to watch your kid and know they're capable of more, whether that's more at a higher level or more at the level they're at, and let them find it for themselves. I think that's hard, and I'm a parent too. There are times I'm like this. My oldest is going to college in fall, and so this past year I've really practiced letting him lead his decisions and be accountable for whatever happens, because he turns 18
Uh-huh.
and I don't know what magic switch is going to happen.
Sure.
All of a
Yeah.
sudden, but legally he now gets to make his own decisions, and I'm going to say, and I have to trust that I raised him well, just like I have to trust that I taught my players well to be able to go.
That's so powerful. Wow. Oh God, that is. I can appreciate how you bridge the softball world and the family world. And it's just, that leads us. I mean, that literally leads us to what goes on behind the dugout, if you will, because if you're like me and just listening to you, it sounds like you put the motivation, the emphasis, the heart, the mind. I mean, all of it. It's everything goes into this. And so to turn this off, it's just, you don't really necessarily, you don't really turn it off. Instead, you find ways to apply that to your everyday life in everything that we do. And I just think that's so powerful. So, folks, let's talk about real quick what goes into being a travel ball coach director that's got a multitude of teams. You heard Coach Briana say it: 8U, 9U, 10U. They have 12U. I mean, this is a real living and breathing thing. So, tournament weekend for you as a coach. What does just walk us through what does a tournament weekend look like for you?
Yeah. They're super fun. So they usually start with whatever the practice is before, right? Where you're like, okay, let's try a couple of different things, different combinations, decide what is it that we are going to emphasize that weekend. What's the goal? Especially at the younger age, what's the goal? Are we focusing on outs? Are we focusing on combinations? Are we focusing on hitting? Like what is it? And then developing and putting that in practice, that day. At younger ages, I sometimes feel like a glorified kindergarten teacher, and I love kindergarten teachers. Thank you, Mrs. Calandrelli, for all that you taught me. But it's coming up with that they need visual motivation.
Sure.
So I started we had a chart in the dugout, and I'd be like, if you do these things, you're gonna, like it's ice cream social. It's you're coming over to swim in the pool. We're gonna do, a popsicle at practice. It doesn't it's not extensive things. But it's things where they can see right away instant feedback. I think when I grew up, we didn't have that, but I also think we didn't have phones and things that gave us that instant gratification either. And so I think you have to realize that's players today. And it might sound cheesy, corny, and those types of things, but it's that balance of holding them accountable and falling in love. And it's much easier for them to fall in love when it's an instant obstacle because you took that. I saw everyone call the play. I saw you take that step back. I saw that drop step. I saw you do your prep step. Yep. I saw you do this, and I noticed. And that's that that little bit, right?
Yeah, keeping them motivated all at the same time. Engaged, motivated.
And then it's giving them advice about nutrition, especially down here. If you start hydrating that Saturday morning, you're too late. You needed to be well hydrated from our practice on Wednesday or Thursday until Saturday, because that's a very real thing, especially with the way we do tournaments here in this area. You're leaving your house at 5, 6 in the morning, sometimes earlier if we're doing something that's a little farther away. You're not getting home until well after midnight, if you go far. If you make that, if you have a good weekend. So it's making sure you're going to eat right, nutrition, you've got that hydration especially. And then it's, we're up at, got the lineups all set and the strategy around, you do a little more, trying some things out, when you're in pool play, and it's a little more serious when you get to bracket play in terms of, being, who's the person who's playing third the best this weekend. And so those things, and we get there, we need to be there an hour ahead. And coaching girls, they can't drive.
Right.
So as parents need to be there an hour ahead, and it's kind of reinforcing that. And it's hard sometimes as a youth coach because I can't punish the kid for being late.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. I can't, your mom was tired and you didn't get here when you were supposed to, so you're not sitting type of thing.
Right.
When they get a little older and they're late, and you know that.
Right.
You are going to sit the first inning, and or you might not play the first game because those habits. Because we're building people, so you're late to work.
There's accountability, right? Yeah.
There are very real consequences. So you have to do those things, and then it's keeping them that whole day. Softball, unlike baseball and some other sports, because it's spread out. At least here, it's spread out over multiple days. I don't necessarily think that's the healthiest thing for kids, but it's the reality we live in. And as adults, we have the power to change it. So I'm going to say to us, we need to consider that. But they're going to be there if they do well. You have 7 and 8 girls who are going to play 5, 6 games in a day.
Wow. Yeah.
So you got to build endurance in them.
Absolutely.
Right? You got to build it in practice. You got to build it. They've got to be able to pay attention all day long, and that is. That's hard. Think about your adults in a meeting at work, right? I mean, we now have 45-minute meetings because we post pandemic can't sit for 60 minutes, and we're grown people who can control our emotions, right? At least we hope. These little people can't do that, or shouldn't be expected to.
Right.
So it's those things, and it's thinking about the day and building in. So I bring things that are quiet for them to do. So, they're fun, they're playful, right? We made bracelets one time.
Yeah.
And you might be wondering, why don't we make bracelets? It's because then they're sitting. but they're talking to each other, they're laughing, they're building camaraderie, they're
Oh,
thinking
oh,
about
yeah,
stuff. And they're in the moment, but they're not running around using excess energy.
sure,
Over the course of the season, I started, putting in place that they get 1 hour, especially when it's long breaks.
right,
They get 1 hour to go play on the playground. Let's go play.
yeah,
Because they're still 8.
yeah,
They still need that and they need to goof off with their friends. And I'm over there, praying, please God, don't let anyone break anything.
don't break anything, yeah,
Because we gotta play after this.
absolutely,
Because you can tell them sit under the shade, drink, do all those things.
Right.
At the end of the day, though, they're friends.
Right.
If you're doing it right, they want to be with their friends,
Yes.
and their teammates. And so, I think that those are the things you do, and then you look, and sometimes, and there's one tournament in particular that I think about. It was a long day. We started, really, really early. We had the early game. It was one of our farther drives. It was almost a 2-hour drive. Rained. Delays in the morning, delays in the afternoon. And so, we're looking at if we made it to the championship game, we were going to be playing at midnight.
Right.
And I knew as a coach, I could see it. I have kids walking out on the field crying, not because they don't want to play, because their bodies can't do it anymore. They're so tired, they just can't. And I remember sitting there thinking, we need to do this.
Mm.
And that's where doing what's right and what's easy.
Yeah.
Right.
The fun line there,
I want to win.
right,
I'm a pretty competitive person. I want to win. But in this one, I'm not going to make that extra change. We're going to leave this alone. And if we pull it out, hey, great.
Yeah.
But if we don't, that's okay. Because I don't think we have another team in us. And I'd already prepared because it was pretty close.
Sure.
I was thinking, I was like, we might take this. And then ultimately, when that happened, there we are.
absolutely,
Right. But I had already prepared to say, like, Coach, we're not playing this game. What do you want to do? Rock, paper, scissors.
wow,
Everybody takes a hit. We keep track. Most hits win. Do you want it? Here you go.
sounds like a memorable moment, wow.
It really was, and it's because I looked at those little kids who would. I mean, they die for me. They line
Yeah,
up there.
Danny loves you. I mean,
Yeah, I love her too.
the relationship you built with my daughter is it's really powerful.
Yeah. So I'm like, but I'm not going to because at the end of the day, I'm the adult.
Yeah.
And I looked at those kids and I'm like, we have been there, and it's now we're going on hour 16. These kids are tired. We're not doing this. I was already prepared, and ultimately that happened to me because that was a heartbreaker. I felt that one. But I was like, this is the Lord working through us, saying you're right, and I don't want you because I was ready to go to battle for them. Be like, no, we're not. You can hurt your baby, but you man, we're happy with second. Because I knew they didn't. But I also knew it's wonderful, and I had wonderful families. Really, I mean, and not just because you were one of them. I had wonderful families, and I knew even in those families, like saying we're not going to do this, would have been hard. But no, we can do it. Yeah, but should we do it? Should we? Because I'm looking at these are kids who, take a lot in stride. And even the ones who I've never seen cry are crying. And that's because that's where they have that release. And I think you have to be willing to be the adult in that moment, even though you're going to take a lot. You're going to have parents, you're going to have players. So like, no, we got to do this. But it's the same way of, when I say to my own children, or when my parents said to me, you can, but should. What is this going to take? And my mom's a physical therapist.
Sure.
So, rehab and those types of things. And I've had the examples all over life of people who went back too soon, did more damage, took longer. Right. And then maybe took that thing they really wanted off the table for them.
Wow.
You know,
So that elasticity, I guess, right? Because you think you're ready and all, you stretch it a little too far and then all of a sudden it pops back. Yeah, but you stretch it in a way that it actually snaps. And so
Yeah.
now you got to repair everything. Wow. That's pretty powerful. So, Coach, you mentioned it. Let's talk about the parent coach dynamic. You talked about having some great parents on, with this last season. You talked about, a memorable moment, being in that situation where, the girls have played very well, early morning. I know I recall that one
Yeah.
where we didn't get home until 1:30 in the morning.
They got a triple play that day.
Yeah, yeah. And so,
Like, they did it, but we got to the end.
yeah, yeah. But it was a very, yeah. I think we all, I know my family slept in that morning on
Yeah.
Sunday morning. But let's talk about the parent coach dynamic and what it takes to, build the relationships. One, because as a coach, look, I've coached before, but I'm gonna tell you the magnitude of the relationships now, having to build the relationships and build the trust with the player, but also having to do that with the families is a whole different ballgame. So tell us, what advice do you have for parents of travel ball players that when it comes to supporting their kids outside of off the field?
Sure. So I think the thing, it doesn't matter what level you play at. Like if you're playing at the top of the top of the top levels of competitiveness, or you're just starting out.
Sure.
I think you have to be really clear on what your goal is and what your expectation is, and communicate that. Because coach is a human and not mind readers, right? And I gotta say, I know all the tea. I know all about what goes in your household. I know all the things, all the things, because they tell me.
The girls are gonna say it.
They
Yeah.
tell me, right? And so, the thing I do is post is I'm never going to use what they say, against the
Yeah.
parent.
Yeah.
I'm also going to verify, because little minds sometimes
Yeah.
weave in different ways. And so I think you as a parent, you got to be very, very clear on what your goal is. I think it's very, very hard to watch your child struggle and not feel like it's your fault, right? And watch them fail. But failing is the most powerful part of the process of
Sure.
developing as a player. And we have to be willing to let that, you have to be willing to why on earth did you throw it home when there's a play? And not have that conversation in the car ride home. And I know that's one of the things that I asked parents to do. It's really hard as the season goes on, especially if maybe you think that the team should grow faster. Except your child might have. There's 9, 10, 11, sometimes other children that are part of that team. And they might not have grown. So what your kid is ready for might not be what those the rest are ready for. And that's part of being a good teammate. So what you can do is talk your child up to being a leader. Is saying, hey, you've got this really, really good, but I've noticed, and coach seems to be really getting on, so and so. Not that we talk about other players, because we shouldn't. But hey, why don't you offer? Because I think you've done so good this season. Offer to be their partner and help them get it better too. To bring your intensity to that player. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But that's the type of thing that helps build a positive team culture. I think the thing that is hard is the car ride. Because you want to.
Yeah.
And you want to debrief it. And I want you to talk about, roses, sunshine, world peace, whatever floats your boat.
Right.
They know what they did wrong. They did. Now, what they are going to hear from you is, here's a second adult telling me. They're not going to take that and turn it into motivation. They're going to take it and turn it into fear and shame.
Wow.
And I think that is incredibly hard. As you get older, your kids just won't listen to you because they're teenagers and
Right.
you know, right?
Yeah.
And they might tell you, shut up. I don't want to hear it. Or I'm going to ride home with my friend, right? Like they might tell you. But at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, well, you're their ride. And they are conditioned to love you. And I tell my parents this, I am never ever going to make your child choose between you because we can't do that. Because they should choose you, right? But if they are getting to the point where they're like that's where it's at, then that relationship is broken. And we as adults should have taught sooner, made sure we were on the same page, understood why. Because sometimes they very good reasons why we're doing what we're doing, right? And sometimes it's not the one that you might be thinking. You have to be willing to talk to the coach. And you have to be willing to talk to the head coach. I mean, that's the other thing. Is like, most coaching staffs, there's a head coach, there's assistant coaches, there might be like positional coaches, those such things, depending on the organization, how big you are, how small you are. And you got to be willing to talk to that person, not with fear. Well, if I go talk to them, playing time's going to change, whatever the case may be. You have to have that conversation, and it's hard because it might. And the other thing is, you might hear some things you don't want to hear, right? And that I think
that's just a fact of life. Yeah,
that's just a fact of life, right? And what you think's going on, and what that coach is seeing in the dugout might be two very different things. And I think the last thing is stay out of the team huddles. They're not like after game, and that's hardest at the younger ages. It's a lot easier at the older ages because your kids are going to turn on the other. But at the younger ages, and I understand it because as a parent, you're like, I want to know so I can help, right? But they're looking at you to see how you're reacting to what that coach is saying, and that's driving how they're reacting. Wow. And I think that is really like fundamental. And so if you stop trusting your coach, trusting your player next to you. And even if you're the best actor, actress, you won an Emmy, your kids know you better than anyone. And so they know when you're tense. So if something's going, you got to have that conversation, or you got to find a way to let it go. And maybe it's grandma's the one that's doing it. I don't know what it happens to be, but I think that is the relationships there matter the most because kids want to please adults. They do. I know they all drive us crazy sometimes, and we don't think they want to please us, like your room's still not clean. But that is super important, is that we have to be on the same page, and that means regular meetings, those types of things, and ask for it. Because sometimes, coaches are perfect, and I'm really not perfect. And I have a big job.
Yeah.
I have a big job, and so sometimes you'll come talk to me if you have something you need to say. And I learned the hard way that that's not always true, and so it's made me better as a coach for sure. But it is also something I would say to parents. And then the last thing I will say is, are you creating the environment at home that is going to let that child succeed? So are you making sure they're drinking their water and staying hydrated so that when they come to practice, they're hydrated?
Good to go, right?
They're good to go. Are you saying, hey, did you do your dailies today? Did you stretch? Did you, work on it? Did you watch that YouTube video that coach sent, or did you find one?
Right.
So that those types of things. And, hey, let's go throw the ball. Let's go, go in the garage and get through those, because we don't, in an hour and a half or 2 hour or 1 hour, whatever you practice like that needs to be, you can't do everything.
Right.
So if we're constantly working on here, we can't get to here.
Right.
But if we have parents who are partners, right?
I love that term, partnership. Yeah, partners.
We'll say, yeah, we're going to do this, and we're going to come to that meeting, and we're going to learn how you do it, and we're going to I do this is probably the college professor in me. Like I said, here's what we're working on. Here's the exercises they should be doing. here's the things. I want them to do one thing for their body, one thing for their mind, one thing for their spirit. Here's some examples. You do you, right? Like, I sent it to you.
Yep, I do.
You know, here's the warm up that we have to do every time. So at the older ages, those kids should be arriving early and getting that done before practice starts, right? Younger ages, they can't drink. They rely on you. So if you know it's gonna be tight to get there, have them before you get in the car, right? Like do those things to be a big partner.
Yep.
And don't undermine them. That is the one thing that I will say. If you start questioning the coach's decisions, if you think something's not important, you don't think warm up's important. That's silly. We don't even do that.
Right.
Except if you go to any team. They have a warm up.
Warm up, right?
They have Mr. Miyagi was not wrong. Watch out. Doing those plyometrics, doing those dynamic warm ups, doing those stretches, doing those Pilates and even ballet are super important if you want to be a top level athlete. You have to be fit, you have to be flexible, you have to be fast. Those are the things that get you to there. And it starts at 6, 7, and 8. Because once you get to 12 and you got those tight hamstrings, I'm going to tell you, you got a lifetime of stretching ahead of you. And it's still not going to be as good as when your muscles are younger and more willing to live.
So powerful. Yeah, that's so powerful. Coach, so we come to the end here, and we appreciate your time. And I know that our listeners have can certainly appreciate your words of wisdom. And I find them as words of encouragement, even as a parent. I find it so powerful that, while you have coached my daughter, you even coached me on a couple of things that I need to knock the old rust off of. So I think that's pretty powerful. So real quick, got some rapid fire questions for you. One, what is a must-have game day item for you?
Fan towel.
Fan and towel. All right. And so this season, I know you've been around for many seasons, but this season, what was by far the funniest moment that you experienced in the dugout?
Girls and flatulence. So, just like there, I coached boys before I coached girls, and there is zero difference, and they are hysterical.
Oh wow,
just like,
that's hilarious.
Burps and farts and all this.
Oh wow.
And just being themselves. And just like, what's that? What did you just do? Yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Girls and flatulence. That's hilarious. Last thing. When it comes to understanding, and one thing that you wish people understood about being a youth coach, what is just one thing that you would want people to understand about being a youth softball coach?
It's the most rewarding,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also the hardest because you constantly have to say goodbye. You can't fix it. And at the same time, you get to watch the lights come on and so much growing. And kids who find their love and their confidence, best gift in the world. But then once they grow past their youth and confidence, you have to say goodbye. And not in the permanent sense, but in the, I'm not going to get to see you every week, and I'm going to miss that hug, or I'm going to miss that, hey, this is what happened. They're not, that light that they are. I think that is what makes it both wonderful and terrible.
Wow. Coach, we do appreciate your time. Thank you very much for being on the episode with us today. I hope you got a little something out of this. I know this has been a blessing. And I know our listeners are here, and by all means, for this is Seams and Downs. If you like this type of an episode, give us a like. For players who are listening and potential players in the Germantown Baseball League, if they wanted to reach out to you, how would they go about reaching out to inquire about softball here with the Lady Rays or the Stars or
Stars or our house program? Yeah, absolutely. So you can always learn more on our Facebook page, DBL Softball, or you can email us at dblsoftball@gmail.com.
Outstanding. You heard it, folks. Well, much appreciation for those listeners that are out there. This episode is Seams and Downs. We've been hosting Coach Briana Yeager of the Germantown Baseball League, or otherwise known as the Lady Rays softball program. My daughter played for her with the 8U team, and we are signing off. We hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thank you all very much.